You notice it first in the silence. You sit at a table with people you have known for years. You share an ambition, a shift in your mindset, a new standard you demand of yourself, and instead of support, you get a polite, awkward pause. Then comes the disguised joke, the passive, aggressive advice telling you to be realistic. They do not say it out loud, but you feel the shift. Your evolution is terrifying to them. It forces them to look at their own stagnation. I spent years shrinking myself to fit into rooms I had already outgrown. I diluted my thoughts so I would not make others uncomfortable. But playing small does not serve the world, and it certainly destroys your soul. If you are tired of suffocating your potential to keep the peace with mediocrity, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell, and leave a comment below with the truth you have been hiding. Share this with someone who needs to wake up. We are building a sanctuary here for those who refuse to live on autopilot. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche understood this isolation perfectly. He was not a man of cheap motivation. He was a surgeon who cut straight to the bone of human existence. Nietzsche realized that a truly powerful mind is a profound threat to the herd. When you stop asking for permission to exist, when you start creating your own values, you become dangerous. You become a mirror reflecting the weakness of those who still need society to tell them how to live. But how do you actually build a mind that's strong? A mind that does not bend, does not beg for approval, and terrifies the weak simply by existing. It does not happen through positive affirmations. It happens in the abyss. It happens when you stop running from pain and start weaponizing it. Nietzsche wrote that you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. Most people spend their entire lives running from chaos. They medicate it. They numb it with endless entertainment. They cling to toxic relationships just to avoid facing the silence of their own minds. But true mental fortitude requires you to stand completely still in the middle of your own internal storm. Think about the moments that actually forged your character. It was not when you were comfortable. It was when you were completely shattered. It was when you had zero direction. When your heart was broken, when everything you built collapsed, and you had to reconstruct your identity brick by brutal brick. Pain is not a glitch in the universe. It is the raw material for greatness. While the masses beg the universe for an easier life, a terrifying mind begs for the strength to endure a harder one. I remember the exact moment my safety net snapped. You probably know the exact feeling. The day you finally realize no one is coming to save you. There is no grand plan magically working in your favor. There is no automatic justice punishing those who betrayed you. There is just you, the choices you make, and the cold pavement of reality. The philosopher we are talking about called this the death of God. He was not just attacking religion. He was tearing down a massive psychological illusion. The illusion that some external authority is secretly managing your destiny. When that illusion shatters, the silence is deafening. I spent 10 years of my life outsourcing my failures. I blamed toxic managers. I blamed the economy. I blamed the circumstances of my childhood. It was a comfortable lie. As long as I've remained the victim, I never had to do the grueling, agonizing work of changing my own life. But here is the brutal truth nature teaches us. Outsourcing your responsibility means outsourcing your power. You cannot hand someone your excuses without also handing them your freedom. This philosophy rips that comfort away completely. It looks you dead in the eye and hands you the heaviest burden a human being can carry, which is radical freedom. When there is absolutely no one left to blame, you hit an existential rock bottom. Most people completely crumble right here. They panic. They rush to find another distraction. They desperately look for a new authority figure to tell them how to live, what to buy, and who to hate. They run straight back to the herd. But if you can force yourself to stand still in that terrifying emptiness, something profound begins to shift inside you. The death of your excuses becomes the birth of your unbreakable mind. You stop waiting for a sign. You stop asking for permission to take up space. You start creating your own values from scratch. The crushing weight of total responsibility suddenly transforms into the most dangerous weapon you can possibly possess, which is absolute autonomy. You realize that if you alone are responsible for your failures, you alone possess the power to forge yourself into something completely unrecognizable. This is the exact moment you transition from a servant of your circumstances into a creator of your reality. And a creator does not ask the world for validation. A creator forces the world to adapt to their vision. This shift in perspective is violent. You will literally feel parts of your old identity dying off. The part of you that wanted to be pitied. The part of you that wanted to be saved. You have to let those weak versions of yourself die so the overarching creator can take the wheel. People around you will notice this shift immediately. They will try to hand you back your old excuses. They will offer you easy ways out because your new level of accountability highlights their endless complaining. Do not take the bait. Let them keep their comfortable illusions. You are building an empire in your mind, and empires are not built on borrowed land. There is a specific name for the person who survives this realization and decides to build anyway. The philosopher called it the Overman. This is not a comic book hero. This is a human being who has completely conquered the deeply ingrained biological need for group approval. I remember the exact phase of my life when this clicked. I had stopped making excuses, but I was still trying to fit my new ambitions into my old social circles. I wanted to be extraordinary, but I still wanted to be universally liked. You cannot have both. You have to make a choice. The Overman does not adapt to a sick society. They impose their own meaning onto reality. They do not walk into a room and wonder if they are accepted. They ask themselves if the room is worthy of their presence. This is absolute self-sufficiency. It feeds entirely on its own internal drive to shape the world. But let me tell you the dark side of this transformation. Becoming this kind of person requires a brutal internal slaughter. You literally have to kill off the versions of yourself that still desperately crave a pat on the back. You have to watch relationships fade away and resist the urge to chase them. You have to endure the agonizing silence of building an empire from scratch with zero applause from the audience. Most people completely break down right here. The isolation is too heavy. They sprint back to the warm, suffocating embrace of the herd. They go back to the safe jobs, the gossiping friend groups, the predictable routines. Because it is easier to be miserable in a group than to be powerful alone. Nietzsche himself died misunderstood and isolated from the very world he was trying to wake up. But it was inside that intense solitude that he forged a philosophy that outlasted empires. The undeniable truth is that the higher you rise, the thinner the air gets. The stronger your mind becomes, the further you will drift from the masses. This is not arrogance. This is gravity. You cannot forge an unbreakable identity while constantly checking to see if the herd approves. You must learn to walk into the desert alone. You must sit in the absolute silence and face your own demons, your traumas, and your deepest insecurities. Only when you stop fleeing from the quiet can you finally hear your own voice. Once you embrace the solitude of the Overman, you will collide violently with collective mediocrity. Nietzsche did not fear dictators or authoritarian regimes. He feared the subtle, corrosive power of the crowd. True tyranny does not come from above. It comes from the people sitting right next to you. It comes from the peers who demand you remain small so they do not have to feel bad about never growing. Think about what happens when you start waking up early, chasing a vision, and refusing to complain. Your old friends will not applaud you. They will tell you to live a little. They will call you obsessed. They will disguise their insecurity as deep concern for your well-being. I remember the exact conversation where my closest circle tried to pull me back into their misery. They used irony, awkward silences, and passive-aggressive comments to make me feel foolish for trying. It took me years to realize they were not trying to protect me. They were trying to protect themselves. Collective mediocrity simply cannot stand individual brilliance because your light exposes the darkness of their ordinary lives. Nietzsche diagnosed this condition perfectly and called it slave morality. It is a psychological defense mechanism built by those who are too afraid to chase greatness. Because they cannot reach the top, they invert the values of the world. They label mental strength as arrogance. They label absolute independence as coldness. They label ambition as pure selfishness. They create a moral code that protects the weak and intentionally condemns the strong. And make no mistake, this is not born out of human compassion. It is born out of pure, unfiltered resentment. The weak do not actually want to be saved. They want the strong to be destroyed. so everyone is equal in their misery. This is exactly why the moment you start liberating your mind, the subtle attacks begin. They will use social shame. They will use exclusion. They will try to make you feel guilty for simply outgrowing the spaces you used to share. They will use the heavy weight of the majority to make you doubt your own sanity. And this is exactly the battlefield where millions of people surrender. They simply cannot bear the weight of being called strange, difficult, or arrogant. So they lower their heads and step right back in line. But you must understand that your refusal to conform is an act of war against a profoundly sick culture. You need mental weapons to survive this phase. You must become completely immune to the weaponized guilt of the herd. If you are still watching this, you already possess something rare. Most people run the moment they feel the uncomfortable friction of reality. They want cheap motivation. They do not want surgery. Building a mind that terrifies the weak is a path of absolute renunciation. I will not lie to you. It will cost you. You will lose friendships that were built entirely on superficial convenience. You will lose opportunities because you refuse to shrink yourself to make an insecure person feel powerful. You will lose the comfortable numbness of living on autopilot. But look at what you get in return. You gain an integrity so solid it cannot be bought. You develop a presence that commands a room before you even open your mouth. Have you ever noticed how the truly powerful people are rarely the loudest? Their silence is heavy. Their clarity is intimidating. That level of power is not something you learn from a weekend seminar. That is dug out of the trenches of your own soul during the nights you thought you would break, but chose to stand your ground instead. Friedrich Nietzsche did not write his philosophy to create a cult of obedient followers. He wrote it to trigger internal earthquakes. He wanted you to stop crawling through life, begging for crumbs of meaning from a society that is fundamentally lost. He wanted you to become dangerous, not violent. Dangerous because your pure, unfiltered authenticity forces everyone around you to look in the mirror and confront their own cowardice. The internal war between who you were and who you are destined to become never truly ends. The strong are not the ones who finally won and sat down to rest. The strong are the ones who wake up every single day and choose to fight the battle again. Claim your space right now. Go to the comments and write down one truth you have been terrified to say out loud. One belief that isolates you from the herd but represents exactly who you are. This is your declaration that you will no longer bend. If this struck a nerve, do not let the momentum die here. Watch the next video appearing on your screen. It is the exact blueprint you need to continue this evolution. You are not alone in this desert. You are simply leading the pack. Keep walking.